Welcome to my new series. I'm calling it Retro Redux. So, in this series, I'll take a look back at some of the most iconic and memorable games of all time. I'll share my thoughts, discuss whether they're worth revisiting, and do what I love best talk about games. I'll both be revisiting games I love and playing ones I may have missed. So, in today's first episode, I'll be revisiting one of my favorite games of all time, Dishonored. Note, I'm playing on PC. So sit back, relax, and let me tell you all about the world of Dishonored. Spoiler free, of course. So, Dishonored takes place in the fictional city of Dunwall, and the world is a blend of magic, Victorian London, and has some steampunk vibes to it. And Dunwall is currently ravaged by an ever increasing plague, something similar to like the Black Plague, but honestly, even worse. People are turning into mindless, zombie like creatures, rats infest every crack and crevice, and the only cure is a rare elixir that's honestly only as valuable as gold. Now, on top of this, a conspiracy of betrayal and murder surrounds the protagonist Corvo. I won't say more than that because you really should experience this game for yourself if you haven't already. Now, overall, I would say the story is pretty engaging and it kept my attention throughout, but it's nothing groundbreaking and it's not going to shatter any records. But it's compelling enough to keep you playing, to see what happens next. On the other hand, the characters are fairly generic. Corvo, the main character, is a silent protagonist with very, very little in terms of overall engagement. I'm not going to have posters on my wall. I'm not going to have statues of him. And unfortunately, the side characters are also fairly similarly bland. Emily, the damsel in distress, feels one-dimensional and serves mostly as a figure to protect. The main villains aren't seen or explored much. They mostly serve as fun targets to go after. That said, the story is still good, like I said. It kept me engaged, but it's not something I'll remember for years to come. Now, what I did find really interesting was the lore. There are tons of hidden notes and random NPCs discussing their surroundings and thoughts in the world. I always found it really interesting to stumble upon a back alley and see two NPCs talking about what they thought about the Grand Overseer or some random new characters that were just introduced. It was always really fun, and I always stopped and listened. Now, Dunwall is a fascinating city, and Arcane really did a fantastic job making it feel alive. The game also does something really cool. Depending on how you play, you get different endings. If you play non-lethally and with a conscience, you get the low chaos ending, which is more of a less tragic ending, a little bit lighter. And if you play like a sociopath and slaughter everyone you see, you get the high chaos ending, which is much, much darker. But for me personally, I preferred the darker ending more because I thought it fit the characters that we had been playing better. Plus, it's more fun to just use your sword and powers the way they were meant to be. Now, gameplay. Let's talk gameplay. It's fantastic. It's the bread and butter of Dishonored. At its core, Dishonored is a stealth game. But if you're someone who absolutely despises stealth, you can simply go in with sword drawn and cool magic, decimating enemies left and right. And one of the best things Dishonored does is it gives you freedom. You can really do whatever you want. Want to take to the rooftops, using your blink power to teleport over enemies' heads? Go for it. Want to possess a guard's body and walk right through enemy territory? That's possible too. And every level has dozens of ways to achieve your goals. It's honestly incredible. And I'm not generally someone who likes to replay games, but in the last weekend alone, I played Dishonored twice, and it's not the first times I've played this game. And also remember, this game came out in 2012, not in the high budget 2025 era. So now, is the actual gameplay itself fun? Well, absolutely, especially the stealth. For me personally, some stealth games can be too punishing. Enemies have crazy field of views, hear every step you take, and there's often a wall of enemies. I understand that some players enjoy this, but for me, it's not my cup of tea. I don't like the super punishing stealth that I end up just getting caught and in a firefight almost immediately. And Dishonored strikes a perfect balance, offering thoughtful stealth without being too punishing. And as mentioned earlier, The game gives you a ton of different magic powers to experiment with. My personal favorite is Bend Time. Once fully upgraded, you can freeze time completely. And then you could do something like summon a swarm of rats and blink away, then unfreeze time. The rats go to town. You could freeze time, drop a grenade at their feet, and when you unfreeze time, well, you know what's going to happen next. And this combination of powers and gadgets is frankly unbelievably satisfying. And it's really easy to pick up. Truly, it's really easy to pick up. I spent hours just experimenting with what was most effective and what was most interesting. And let's talk a little bit about the swordplay and combat. Sword to sword combat, it's simple. Basic attacks, blocking, and there's no real combo system. Now you can parry an enemy's attack and counter with a finishing move. And then there's also these ridiculously overpowered pistol and crossbow, along with grenades and some other gadgets that can help in combat. On the surface, it's nothing extraordinary, but when combined with the excellent magic system mentioned above, it makes for a highly enjoyable combat system. The game's performance is pretty impressive for 2012 release. You may notice a few frame rate issues and some screen tearing in some more intense situations, but it never detracted from my enjoyment. And I'm somebody who's picky about frame rates. I quickly adapted back to the 30 frames per second, and I didn't feel it was a major issue. There's also the Definitive Edition, which if you plan on picking this game up, just play the Definitive Edition. And I also wanted to talk about the soundtrack. It's composed by Daniel Licht, and it complements the dark atmosphere beautifully. It's subtle yet haunting, and the music often underscores moments of tension or tragedy that further enhances the game's immersive qualities. The voice acting is solid too, with notable performances that help bring out the various characters and bring them to life. So overall, what are my thoughts? Dishonored is a game that rewards experimentation and offers deep replay value with its rich, open-ended design. Its captivating world, fluid gameplay mechanics, and impactful narrative choices make it a standout in the stealth action genre. If you're looking for a game that lets you carve your own path, Dishonored is a must play. It offers a rich experience that holds up well even after multiple playthroughs. Really, it's a true testament to Arcane Studios' ability to craft a world that feels alive and reactive, making every decision matter. I highly recommend Dishonored, and if you have not played it already, please pick it up. You will not regret it.